Hi everyone, it's Tarrant.
And Stella from Meeple University.
Today we'll be teaching you how to play Oriflamme, game designed by Adrian and Axel Hessling and published by Studio H. This game has been released in 3 separate releases, each of which is playable by itself or able to be combined into a single game. And this video will teach you how to play any of those versions.
Let's get to the game.
Oriflamme is a game of intrigue and deception. Players will be playing cards from their hand into a queue, which will then be resolved from left to right. Players need to get their cards into the right place and choose the opportune moments to resolve them in order to earn the most influence and eliminate their rival competition. They need to place themselves tactically for the best opportunities and avoid falling into traps and ambushes left by their opponents. After 6 rounds of play, the player with the most influence wins. To begin any game of Oriflamme, each player will have an identical deck of 10 cards. If you have only one copy of the game, this will be the 10 cards that come with that game. While if you have multiple versions, you can combine their decks in certain ways, which I'll go through at the end of the video. Each player's cards are distinguishable by the colours on their backs and the colours and icons on their fronts in this banner. Each player now separately shuffles their deck and then discards 3 cards from it face down. The remaining 7 cards will form the player's hand. You can look at the cards you've discarded. After all, you'll be able to deduce what they are based on their absence from your hand, but you should keep them face down and hidden from all other players. All players will now have slightly different 7-card hands. Give each player 1 starting influence, randomly choose a first player for the first round, and place the dagger lengthwise on the table. This represents the direction of resolution. You're now ready to play. Oriflamme is played in 6 rounds, and each round is played in 2 phases. First the placement phase, and second the resolution phase. We'll go through these 2 phases now, but first we'll do it in the context of the first round of the game. There's a few options which don't appear until a little bit later. First is the placement phase. Here, in turn order, starting from the first player, each player will place 1 card from their hand into the queue. That is, a row of cards which ultimately will be resolved in the direction of the dagger. The first player simply chooses a card and places it in the centre of the table. Each subsequent player may either place a card at the front of the existing queue or at the back of the existing queue. Once all players have made such a placement, the placement phase is finished. Next is the resolution phase, and in the direction of the dagger, you'll resolve each card. When you come to a face-down card, that card's owner has a choice. The first option is to place an influence from the supply on the back of the card and leave it face down. The second option is to flip the card face up and resolve its text. When doing this, resolving the full text as written is mandatory unless it's impossible, even if that effect is negative for the player who owns the card. In this instance, the player gains 2 influence from the supply. Many of the game's cards, when resolved, have an ability which allows you to eliminate a different card. Here, for example, it's eliminating either the first or last card from the queue. You can eliminate face-up or face-down cards, and you may be forced to eliminate your own card if the situation dictates it. Any tokens on an eliminated card are discarded, and if you eliminate a face-down card, it is revealed to all players before being removed from the game. When you eliminate a card, even one of your own, you gain 1 influence, and this is signified by this influence marker next to any eliminate effect. There are 2 different types of cards: characters, indicated by this character icon, and intrigue, indicated by this dagger icon. There is no specific rule difference between the 2 types of cards, but you'll often find that some cards may combo directly with other intrigue or character cards, and that intrigue cards often get discarded or moved elsewhere after being resolved. After an elimination, push remaining cards together to fill up any gaps in the queue. Once you've resolved the whole way down the queue, the resolution phase is over. Move the first player marker one step clockwise and proceed to the next round, leaving the queue exactly as it stands in the centre of the table. Once you reach the second and later rounds of the game, a couple of new options and nuances appear in your choices. In the placement phase, each player will still place one card per round in turn order, and you can still place face down, either at the front or the back of the queue. However, you may now instead place the card face down on top of one of your existing cards, whether that card be face up or face down. And if you chose to do this to a card with tokens on it, then you simply cover up those tokens like so. Doing this forms a stack of cards, and you may only make a stack of cards with your own colour of card. Doing this can be really helpful to get your cards into more lucrative locations in the middle of the queue, rather than being restricted to placing them on the front or end. There are a few more things which may now happen in the resolution phase. You'll still resolve from left to right, and if you come to a face down card, its owner still has the choice either to place an influence on it or to flip the card up and resolve it. If such a card has influence on it, then the owner of the card gains that influence before flipping the card and resolving its effect. This accumulation and ultimate payout of influence from your cards is a reward for being able to keep your cards face down as long as possible. If you come to resolve a card which was already face up from a previous round, then you must resolve its full text effect again. Here you see a case where the green player is required to eliminate one of their own cards because of the Archer's effect. This is still worth one influence. When the time comes to resolve a stack, only the top card is considered. You can treat any cards and tokens underneath the top card as if they do not exist. So here, yellow ignores this Archer completely and has the usual choice to either place an influence on this face down card or flip it face up to resolve it. Likewise, for the effects of these abilities, when considering a stack, only the top card is considered. So this ability here, eliminate an adjacent card, could eliminate the top card from this stack, but could not touch the ones beneath it. Once a card is removed from a stack, then whatever cards and tokens are now on top of the stack are considered in play. So in this instance, blue would be resolving this card. Once the queue is fully resolved, you'll then proceed to the next round as usual. The game ends after 6 full rounds, at which point each player will have one unplayed card remaining in hand. Any influence still on the table is lost. The player with the most influence wins. If tied, whichever player has the most remaining cards in the queue, again treating a stack as a single card, breaks the tie, and if still tied, victory is shared. That's all you need to know to start playing Oriflamme. Ultimately, the game is about learning the sets of cards that you're playing with and how best to combine them. Each of the different Oriflamme sets comes with 10 of its own cards, and you can play each box by itself. You can also combine different Oriflamme sets together. To do this, you'll make a total of 5 piles of different cards from the different sets. Each of these piles has a specific sort of flavour. You'll then randomly draw the number of cards shown here from each pile and shuffle them together into one deck. And this will give you a set of 10 which loosely balances like the original game. Once one player has made their own starting deck, all other players take the same 10 cards, so everyone goes in with the same deck. If you don't wish to form your deck manually, you can also go to the game's website to randomly generate a deck for you. From pile 5, you'll end up with 4 characters whose primary purpose is to gain influence based on what's set out in the queue. These aren't violent characters, they're all about gaining, stealing, or redistributing influence around the game. From pile 4, you'll end up with 2 characters whose primary function is to eliminate others. Pile 3 will give you 2 intrigue cards, and these tend to be quite flexible and powerful cards, often involving moving cards around the queue or eliminating them. Then there are piles 2 and 1, and each of those will give you 1 intrigue card that drives a lot of the bluffing in the game. On one of these cards, there's an effect which benefits you the most if you build up a lot of influence on the back of the card before revealing and resolving it. On the other is a card where building up influence on the back is worthless, because when you flip it over, you'll lose that influence. But if someone else eliminates the card while it's still face down, you'll get a healthy reward. Using the threat of these 2 cards effectively, and trying to bait your opponents into eliminating your ambush or trap card, becomes a big part of the bluffing and the social deduction element of Oriflamme. And that's how to play Oriflamme. We hope you enjoyed this video.
If you find this video useful, please help us by hitting the like button. Subscribe to us. You can also hit the meeple in the corner to do that, and hit the bell icon so you'll know when we have new videos. You can also follow me on Instagram for my board games journey.
Comments, suggestions and feedback are all welcome in the comments section below.
Thanks for watching and see you next time.